and gentlemen, welcome to NFL with Kyle, episode 3 of interviewing Broncos Country. Really glad for you guys to join us. And we got a new guest coming in. I don't know anything about him as per usual, so we're going to have plenty to talk about. And without further ado, this is Tyler.
Hey guys,
What's up,
nice to
Tyler?
meet you. Kyle, thanks for having me on tonight. Super excited to talk Broncos.
Absolutely. So, how long have you been a fan? And if you don't mind, where do you live? Do you live in Colorado, or are you Broncos fans from somewhere else?
So somewhere else, I grew up in Western South Dakota,
Okay.
and I'm 34 years old, so I've been a Broncos fan since right about kind of the highlight of the Elway years. That 96, 97, 98 season is how I got started. And I currently live in Grand Forks, North Dakota. So luckily, the Broncos got me before I moved here and became saved me from the fate of being a Vikings fan. But yeah, growing up kind of in Western South Dakota, there wasn't really a geographical team. Most of my friends at that age, in first, second, third grade, were all Cowboys fans, coming off kind of the early '90s. All their dads were Cowboys fans, so that's what I was surrounded with. And then the other half was kind of split between like Packers, Vikings, and there was like one other Broncos fan that I grew up with. But what really got me started was my dad was a big Broncos fan, still is. But kind of my first memory of football, a recollection of watching football, was the 1996 AFC divisional game against the Jacksonville Jaguars, in which Denver was heavily favored. And I don't remember anything about the game really. I was too young, but it just kind of, I remember seeing my dad disappointed, and he wasn't, he handled it well. Like, he's always had his priorities right. Obviously, so many more things important than football. That said, like, he was pretty bummed out because that was the year Elway was getting older.
Yeah.
If not then when? And then you lose to this expansion Jaguars team in a huge upset. So that just kind of left kind of an indelible impact in me of like, oh, this is something that matters to my dad, who I really look up to. It's going to kind of matter to me. And then going into kind of the next season, that was the year they did the uniform change. And I remember being in a grocery store, and that was when kind of the Got Milk ads were popular. Like, you'd see celebrities and athletes on the back of magazines, and they'd have the milk mustache. Well,
yeah,
it was John Elway in the new blue with orange stripes. And for 1997, I know recently that looks has gotten kind of panned as, hey, it looks dated, it looks early 2000s. But in 1997, that uniform was unlike anything that anyone else had. It was super fresh, super unique, and it had the new logo on it. And I just remember being like, I was probably 7 at that time, thinking, that's really cool. I like this team. Followed it up later. I think it was one of the first games of the season. We took a road trip down to Colorado. I had some family in the Denver, Fort Collins area. So while down there, my parents took me to a Broncos game against the St. Louis Rams, and they absolutely balled out. And so that's yeah. So by that time, I was hooked.
I tried to pull it up, and I wasn't able to do it, but I still want to show everybody that's viewing. So I'm going to share screen really quick, and this is what it looked like. There it is, with the new uniforms. Got Milk. All right, I'll put that away. So that's cool. So you're probably in your 30s, somewhere around there.
Yep.
I'm okay.
34. Yeah. So yeah, right in that prime age is when I got caught up in Broncos love and have never wavered. And through that season, became more and more interested. So started having like really clear memories of the playoff run, having to go to Kansas City, going on the road to Pittsburgh, and kind of starting to understand a little bit of the significance of how great those wins were and just how good this team was. And then culminating in the Super Bowl. Like, at 7, I remember being like pissed off that because my dad was talking about just the disrespect. I think we were 14-point underdogs in that Super Bowl against Green Bay. And, okay, I get they're favored. They have Brett Favre, bunch of talent, being favored. But 14 points, even as like a 7 or 8-year-old, I was just like, no, this is terrible. This is stupid. How dare you? So it definitely built into a passion over the course of that year. And then the following year, to follow it up with back to back and just that dominant 14-2 team. I had the posters. I had the Terrell Davis. For school project, we had to like write a letter to an athlete. So of course I wrote to Terrell Davis. So I got back like some a little signed postcard and stuff. So I had the John L. papers and everything. In a box somewhere. My parents recently brought like the box that every guy in their 30s gets from their parents, where it's like, hey, we finally need this out of your storeroom. Go put it in your storeroom. So
right.
So it's
cool
to dig through it and put it up.
The one thing I got from the Broncos, I was in the military. You might have heard that on the last interview, but what I didn't share, and I kind of like how this is going because I'm sharing little pieces, on each one that I'm not sharing on other ones. But I got in a bad accident, and the Broncos heard about it, and they sent me this card, and it was from Liz, who runs all of the, I guess, like human resources for the Broncos, like salute to service, who's going to be nominated for the Walter Payton Man of the Year, like all of that kind of stuff she handles. And she said, Kyle, thank you so much for your service and your sacrifices you have made to serve our country. We are grateful for your support, and we hope to make you proud this season. Go Broncos. And with it was an autographed football from Derek Wolfe. And that was my first like Broncos memorabilia. I've gotten autographs in person, but like in a case on a football, just those things that you're going to have for life, because I'm not really one to purchase autographs for, hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Like for me, the value of an autograph is being there in person when it happened, like remembering the moment, like when I got Justin Simmons' autograph, who, he used to stay outside and, sign everybody's stuff after every game. Even if it was raining, like he was the best player on our team when it came to like loving the fans back. And I remember like the first time I met him, I said, man, I still remember when you blocked that field goal in New Orleans, his rookie year. And he was like, oh man, that's sick. But just like, holy shit, I'm talking. It's funny. I don't really get starstruck, but it was just cool to be like, the autograph reminds me of a time where I had a conversation, with one of my favorite players. And that was really cool. Now, I grew up in Wisconsin, so I actually was watching that Packers Broncos Super Bowl, but everybody was going for the Packers. I was too young to remember the game, but only 2 years later would I mark the Broncos as my favorite team. So I don't know if that was like in my subconscious from being so little, because I turned 30 this year. So I was in 1997. I would have been 4 years or 4, but still too young, to remember anything. And then a couple years later, when I consciously remember watching Broncos games, it was Brian Greasy. It wasn't John Elway. Mm-hmm. So I kind of missed all of that with John Elway. But yeah, it was sacrilegious being a Broncos fan in Wisconsin, especially after the Broncos beat them in the Super Bowl. But
kind of ended the run that never got started. I mean, Brett, because he won in '96 in like his second year, third year. Yeah. I know he was super young, so
yeah,
they were supposed to like win a bunch,
right? And I was just gonna say, it's funny, like you have some players that get a ring early in their career, and then that's all they get, like Brett Favre. And then you have like Aaron Rodgers is the same way. And then you have your John Elway, who gets it at the way end. And it might be like Josh Allen, right? He's trying to get a ring. He's really good. Every year there's a chance, but maybe it's going to happen way, at the end of his career, even though they might be good enough to get to the Super Bowl multiple times, but it's going to be tough in the AFC. So let me just talk about the state of the Broncos since since Manning retired, Trevor Siemian, all of the quarterbacks that we've had. I'm not going to ask the same questions every time, but let me ask this. Was there 1 year between 2015 and I guess last year that you had the most like faith in the Broncos, like whether it was Case Keenum or Joe Flacco, just like there was a year where you were like, I actually like our chances this year?
Yeah, I wouldn't say like chances to go like on a deep playoff run, but the year I did get excited. I'll be honest, this might be controversial. I was a Drew Lock truther.
Me
Um,
too.
I feel like in the right system, with a coach that actually wanted him and supported him, I think he could have been decent. I think he had kind of that swagger, that gunslingerness. He had all the talent to make all the throws. He was athletic. He seems to kind of have that cool guy quarterback factor that guys
Yeah, the
gravitate to.
swag.
And like, you know, who was our offensive coordinator for one year that, Scangarello, like
Oh
it
yeah.
seemed like it was starting to click towards the end of that year, and he got injured early in his rookie year in that preseason game. So that delayed his development. But, as he came back through that season, it seemed like it was starting to click a little bit. And, um, so I was excited for that year. I was like, man, this could be cool. And then, you know, feelings about Vic Fangio aside, like I just feel like that kind of derailed his development. Having a defensive coach with a young quarterback who needed development was probably the worst situation he could have gone to. But that was the season where I was like, okay, not this year, but I'm at least optimistic. We can start putting some things together. Like the Houston game, that was super fun. Um, so that was kind of the year, since 2015 till this current year. I'd say my hopium levels have reached or exceeded that now with the drafting of Bo Nix. But in that intermediate time between 15 and now, that was probably the year that I was most excited.
Yeah, I remember I was on my first deployment that season. So the Broncos finished 3-1 with Drew Lock the year before. He came in at the
Mhm.
end of the year. And then in the draft, of course, Jerry Jeudy was drafted. And then in the second round, they drafted KJ Hamler. And I remember all the people from the draft be like, the Broncos are like fighting fire with fire. You're in the same division as Patrick Mahomes, and now you get a speedster in KJ Hamler, a great route runner. And it was like, it really felt like on paper, KJ Hamler, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick. It just felt like this team had what it took, especially because Drew Lock finished 3-1, and we brought in Melvin Gordon. This is before we knew he couldn't hold on to the football, you know. But there was, I'll say that whole offseason, I remember all the guys, making fun of me because they're like, you're high off your ass if you think the Broncos are going to be a good team this year. And I was like, yeah, we'll see. Like, I'm going to get the last laugh. And it just didn't go very well.
Yeah, it just never got off the ground that second year.
Yeah, and you think a lot of that has to do with uh, Vic Fangio being the defensive coordinator, and then Drew Lock going to Pete Carroll, another defensive guy. Now he's with the Giants, where Brian Dable might actually get his hands on this guy. And I got my friend Bill in here. He's actually here right now. He said, glad to hear it, Tyler, since he's on my team now. I think that Drew Lock is going to get an opportunity at some point this year to start for the Giants, and I think it's going to go better than people are expecting it to go. He has quietly been
Exactly.
taking notes, sitting behind Geno Smith, who is a vet. You know, I just feel like he's continuing to grow. He doesn't have the spotlight on him like he did in Denver, kind of growing behind the scenes. And now he's going to get his first real offensive coach that he's ever had this year.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be shocked if that goes really well. But going into the draft this year, of course, Denver Broncos, Bo Nix. It seems like most Bronco fans are having a similar experience where it's like the longer this kind of settles in, the more we like the pick. I think a lot of that has to do with the media and how they've made a lot of sense with their comparisons of, Bo Nix is a guy that's going to fit right into Sean Payton's system. His dad was a football coach. I think the high school that he coaches for just won the state championship this year. But his dad is a football nerd, and he kind of grew up just really being a student of the game, and Sean Payton really likes that. What were your initial feelings when Bo Nix was drafted at number 12 overall, and how have they changed, or have they not changed since?
Yeah, I was ecstatic. Bo Nix was kind of the guy. Like I know he's the sixth quarterback, but I feel like he's maybe like maybe I'm naive, but I believe the hype of like for Sean Payton, he was QB 1, maybe 2. Like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams was the dream scenario, but like as far as what Sean Payton wants, and I recently finished Jimmy Johnson's biography, and I finished it right about the time, maybe like a month or two before the draft, and it was interesting because like as I started thinking about Jimmy Johnson, one of the greatest team architects ever, the two most important things they looked at for every player, but specifically quarterbacks, were accuracy and intelligence. Arm strength, his arm's fine. Like Drew Brees' arm was fine. It was never that great. Like there's been so many really great quarterbacks throughout the year or throughout, different eras that their arms have been good enough to make all the throws. And you do need a base level of competency, of talent, of arm talent. And I think Drew Lock has that. Or I mean, Bo Nix has that.
Right. Real quick, do you know who's got great arm talent? Zach Wilson.
That's right. Yeah. Outstanding arm talent. So, but then, so he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks ever, even when adjusted. I was encouraged when Sean had revealed that their scouting team kind of like, hey, let's throw out the at the line or behind the line of scrimmage stuff, because that's just Oregon's offense. But even when adjusted for that, he's still one of the most accurate college quarterbacks ever. He's accurate down the field. He's accurate in the middle of the field. And he's undoubtedly like super intelligent. Like the kid breathes, sleeps football. Like he looks at the game from a coach's perspective. Like I think he's going to be a coach on the field. Yes, there'll be an adjustment period, but I think it's going to be like Sean Payton playing through Bo Nix.
Yes,
in the way that we
exactly.
had. So
exactly, and that's
I'm
what
super
Sean's
excited
looking
for
for.
that. I was really glad we didn't. I know a lot of people said, well, trade back and get him later. Like 20th, pick 20th or something. I've never been a big like, if he's your guy, just take him. Like if he works out, no one's gonna be like, well, you could have had an extra 6th round pick if you would have moved back a few spots. Like,
right.
I mean, after Penix goes, who knows? Maybe the Raiders take him. Like, just if he's your guy, just take him.
We haven't had a quarterback in the last 15, and you want to play around with an extra third, maybe. It's like, and plus Sean, he said right after that, he was like, yeah, I was going to draft Mahomes, and then the Chiefs moved up ahead of me, and everybody knows that. But he was like, it's really easy for people to say, oh, you could have moved back and still gotten your guy, but that's probably not the case. And there's probably, I think Chris, the last guy I interviewed, he had the two teams that we both agreed, the Rams or the Raiders, probably would have drafted him. And that's a pretty popular opinion, but I don't think you mess with that. Well, what are you going to do with that 3rd round pick if you don't have the quarterback?
Yeah, it's going to be useless.
Right.
Probably,
So what do you think? I totally agree with that. What do you think about the new uniforms that the Broncos released? I think some people, I don't know anybody that's like, I'm in love. But I've seen people they're like, yeah, it's fine. And people are like, I absolutely hate them. Those are pretty much the only two groups that I've found so far. So what are your thoughts when it was released?
I'll be honest, I really kind of liked them. Now I prefer the blue alternates and the whites a little more to the orange. But I think they're a unique look. I think they look pretty good. I love the matte blue helmets. I love that we kept orange. I like the new number font. The triangles on the numbers I don't love maybe the most, but overall
nobody likes the triangles, but I got to say the triangles never really bothered me. But I don't know. It's funny. I'm such a, I consider myself a little picky because when it first came out, I was upset. I was like, honestly, it was the type of blue that they used. I was really hoping that they were going to go, even if they didn't use the throwbacks, but go back to that, like the Orange Crush type color scheme. Yeah. And then they kind of went into like that navy alternate. Remember their alternate uniform that they released? It was like 4 years ago with the D on the helmet.
Yeah.
But it was navy blue. So every time I saw that uniform, I was like, man, this would be so much cooler if it was just a lighter blue and a lighter orange instead of that. And when I saw the new uniforms, that was the first uniform I thought of. I was like, oh, it's that same navy blue. But I'm gonna get over it. I think I just saw a video. Who was it? It was Audric Estime, the running back we drafted,
Yeah,
and it was Franklin. Uh,
they look good. I thought they looked good
They
on them
looked
in person.
fine. They looked fine in person. So,
I'm
whatever.
I'm really glad they didn't mess with the logo. I think we have the coolest logo in sports. That
Yeah.
Bronco head is so unique, and so I was happy they left that alone. And yeah, like you said, I think they'll be fine as people get used to them. I kind of liked them from the start. I wouldn't be surprised if we wear the blues a little bit more because I think the navies with those white helmets look
Oh
pretty
my
clean.
God. Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
that's sick. I don't know if they're allowed to wear those more than, I don't know the rules on that. Maybe are they allowed to wear
I
that
I think
more
it's up
than
to they
once?
can wear the classic throwbacks or the alternates a total of 3 times. I I,
Okay.
I think I
So,
read that somewhere, probably on Reddit. I don't know if that's accurate for sure, but yeah,
well,
it's and I expect those rules. I feel like those are going to start getting loosened a little bit. Just
I,
more
I
teams
think,
are coming out with more uniforms. Like, come on,
do you
who
think
cares?
that, looking at the schedule, do you think it's possible Denver starts their home opener with those throwback uniforms week 2 against the Steelers? Um, or do you think that's something that they're going to want to kind of wait till November-ish to release?
I would say at least a divisional opponent. I could see him coming out maybe October against the Raiders. Looks like October 6th we play the Raiders in Denver. Um, I could see it then. I
Yeah.
think that would be kind of cool. Open with them against the Raiders.
I know they
Um,
close week 18 with the Chiefs, but I feel like at that point, um, hopefully we're still playing meaningful football, but in the off chance we're not, you don't want to release those jerseys on that day,
Now
depending on where we're at.
we have an interesting game. I think December 2nd. I think it's either a Sunday night game or a Monday night game against the Browns. And just given our history with the Browns,
Oh
that could
yeah,
be kind of cool.
that
Under the
would
lights,
probably.
bust them
I'm
out there.
actually. That's my bet. I'm gonna take that. Um,
Okay.
yeah, the drive, all of that. That I think that the Browns might go with throwback too.
Yeah, that would
Maybe
be a
they
sick game for it.
that would be a great setup. So I was saying all off season, week 1 was going to be Russell Wilson returning to Denver. Um, I felt like the schedule writers were going to put it at the front of the season. In the off chance Justin Fields takes over, you get the most value out of that game. It does not go week 1. Week 1 we go to Seattle. I was at the last season opener in Seattle. I really felt like if the NFL should have done it in Denver. We just did it in Seattle 2 years ago, which was pretty unfair because it was like not only the first time a quarterback's won 100 games and played their former team in the first season, but you make it the very first game. That is a little bit, and then to not even make up for it and hey, let's do it again. I was a little, disappointed about that because I really want Denver to start hot. I feel like their beginning season stretch. No, they're not easy football games, but they're also not the most difficult on the schedule. You look at some of these teams and they have just ridiculous beginnings. The Steelers have maybe one winnable game. I'm not even kidding. The Vikings as well. They have a tough schedule. I go down and I'm like, they're not better than most of these teams. I think the Vikings are my kind of pick to be that 2-3 win football team this year. And as shocking as it is, I mean, this time of year, it's shocking no matter who you say is going to win 3 games because everybody feels good about their roster.
Yeah.
But every year there's a team that kind of, wins 2 or 3 football games that we didn't expect to. What team do you think is, probably going to have a worse season than the over-unders are projecting right now?
Not us. I want to get that
No,
out in front of us. I
yeah.
think we're gonna be. I think we're gonna surprise some people. Hopefully, like you said, it's that time of year again. So everyone's saying that. I think the Vikings are a good spot to kind of select that. I can see the Saints being really bad. Um,
Yeah.
that division's getting tougher. I think, Carolina's not going to be that bad again, I don't think. Atlanta's a lot better. Regardless of who's at quarterback, I think they just have some momentum. So, I think that division's going to be slightly tougher. So I can see the Saints being kind of a upsettingly poor team.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, that's going to be fun.
Not obviously 2-3 wins bad, but I think, and maybe this is wishful thinking, I think the Jets are going to have a disappointing season again.
Wow.
Not hopefully not due to catastrophic injury to Aaron Rodgers. Not that I have any love for Aaron Rodgers, but you never want to see a guy get injured for the whole season, 4 snaps in the game. But I think, they've upgraded their offensive line a little bit, but it's old pieces. Again, a defensive head coach, and the only offensive voice they have is Nathaniel Hackett. And just huge media expectations as well, just heaped upon them. And what do they have, 9 or 11 primetime games? So, all the hype is on them, all the expectations are on them. I could see it kind of, and I think they have a pretty tough schedule to start too. I know they open at San Francisco, I think Monday night.
They get a couple softballs after that. I think they play the Titans week 2. I can't remember, but I think the NFL kind of makes up with that with 2 mediocre type games, and the Bears are another team that is. You could tell the NFL was trying to kind of give that CJ Stroud treatment last year, where it's you're not going to play any elite defenses until November, late October. So the Bears got that going for them. But sticking with the Broncos. What game are you most excited about this year? I know the Steelers game is big. You got, divisional games with Harbaugh, with the Chargers now. I really think that Seahawks, it's funny, Russell Wilson's gone, and I still feel that rivalry with the fan base of Seattle just because of the way that went down and the way they were I think it was the first guy I interviewed made a great point. He's like, Saints fans have been nothing but happy. Sean's going to be great for you. He'll probably win you guys a Super Bowl. But when Russell Wilson was traded to Seattle, it was pretty toxic all around. And from a person that was boots on the ground in Seattle, I was sitting around very nice fans. But obviously, I could see Russell Wilson was not received well in Seattle. And then even after that year one with Nathaniel Hackett, back before Sean Payton became the coach, you were still allowed on Twitter at the time to watch the press conferences right after the game, and you could see the comments. And there was just a bunch of Seahawks fans coming in like, let's ride. Just really finding a lot of joy from our suffering. So I feel like, Russell Wilson's gone, but that's one I really want. And it's funny because the Jets are week 5, I believe. So, do you have the schedule in front of you by chance?
I do. I did pull it up. So yeah, I think I don't have it by week numbers, but they're September 29th. So that looks like it'd be week 4.
Okay, that'd be week 4. So yeah, 3 of our first 4 games I consider, a little revenge undertones in those games. But is there anyone that stands out specifically for you that you're excited about? And in those first 4 games, what record do you think you could see the Broncos going?
So looking specifically at the first 4, I'd say a combination of 2-2 is reasonable. I would feel good about getting off to a 2-2 start. I don't know what combination that would be necessarily. In a long shot, maybe, 3 of the first 4 are on the road. That kind of makes it a little tough. And then we're home for back-to-back games against the Raiders and Chargers. So I could see us starting 2-2. But I'm really excited for kind of the end of the season. We close at Chargers, at Bengals, home against the Chiefs. So
Yikes.
And then before that, we close, with the Colts, home against the Colts, at Chargers, at Bengals, home against the Chiefs. I feel like those last 4 games, again, if we're where we're at, could be really meaningful as far as making the playoffs or something. And I think, regardless of how we do record-wise, over those last 4, even the whole season, those last 4 are going to tell us a lot about where we stand, both on the future of, hey, is Bo Nix going to be the guy? We'll have gotten, I expect him to be the week 1 starter, so there'll be ups and downs, even though he's an experienced rookie being 24 and all the college starts, he's still a rookie. So there'll be some struggles, but by kind of that Thanksgiving, time frame, he should be rolling. So, I look at kind of that last 4 stretch of games there. It's going to be against, again, the Chargers, the Chiefs. Those could be impactful as far as divisional, where we end up in the division, whether we make a wild card or not. Bengals obviously going against Joe Burrow. That's going to be a tough matchup. So I think we're going to learn a ton about, did we come as far as, as the hopium right now that we're feeling? Will we have measured up to that? And what's it look like going into next year? So that's kind of the stretch I'm most excited about.
Yeah, and I'll just be honest. For me, I struggle with this kind of grouping quarterbacks that went to a college. Now, like Ohio State quarterbacks, until CJ Stroud panned out, it was like, oh, Ohio State quarterbacks just don't pan out. And then you really think about it, and you're like, it's same thing with North Carolina. It's like Mitch Trubisky went to North Carolina, and it's like my buddy who I shoot the podcast with on the Only Football podcast, he is a Bears fan, and he said the same thing about Drake May. I was like, wait a minute, are you feeling this way because of maybe a guy you drafted at number 2 overall over Mahomes and Deshaun Watson? And I think it happens to a lot of people. But you look at Oregon, and I see like 2 quarterbacks, and I'm trying not to look at it this way, but I'm just being honest here. I see you got one that was drafted number 2 overall, Marcus Mariota. And these are the ones that come to memory for me. And then, of course, you have Justin Herbert. So it gives you kind of some hope there with Justin Herbert and how he worked out. Do you think it's more likely Bo Nix, like playing style, is going to be more like Herbert than Marcus Mariota? Because I don't think Bo Nix gets enough credit for his ability to run with the football.
No, he doesn't.
Like he just didn't. That never really came up. And even Sean, when he said, "Did anything surprise you or anything pop up that you didn't notice about him?" And he was like, "He's bigger. He looks bigger. Like he's more built than I thought he was." But no, it's pretty much everything is advertised. And then he made that comment about it's kind of like watching a golfer golf. And I just got to think that with Russell Wilson last year, Sean never looked happy. Sean always looked frustrated, like he designed a play and it's not being executed on the field. And now I think you look at that statement about it's relaxing, and I think it's the contrast of what he had last year that makes Bo Nix so relaxing and easy to watch for Sean. But what do you think about the whole Oregon quarterback thing? And do you think it matters what school you go to? Do you think that means anything, like a certain trend from a certain school? Because like, when's the last time Texas Tech had a great quarterback?
Yeah, right.
And you could do that with a lot of different schools. I mean, Michigan, Tom Brady. It's like, okay, who else? So
yeah, that's interesting, and I feel like maybe sometimes schools get not a bad, but an unfair reputation of, we associate maybe too much with the school brand versus the coaching. I think coaching is probably one of the more underrated aspects or indicators of quarterback success. Kind of going back to what we talked about earlier, how John Elway kind of labored all year or all his career and finally broke through at the end. I feel like Patrick Mahomes is having the career that John Elway would have had he been drafted by somebody like Bill Walsh. Like if Bill Walsh for the 49ers had made that trade and like knew how to use them instead of like a Dan Reeves, high school offense from the 70s. So similarly, like, this is something that kind of stood out to me, like just reading about Bo Nix leading up to the draft when it kind of looks like we might take him. But I think he had 5 different offensive coordinators and at least 3 different head coaches throughout his entire college career. And, to me, that's a bigger indicator of success than maybe the logo on the helmet is, okay, obviously he can, synthesize a system, learn it, know it, and go out and execute it very quickly. Like again, he's an extremely high IQ player. So I think, that coupled with his underrated athleticism, I I think somebody could correct me, but I think he was even recruited as like a dual threat quarterback coming out of Alabama in high school when he went to Auburn. And if you go
Yeah.
back and watch some of those Auburn games, like the dude could move. Like he has more escapability than he gets credit for. Like Sean Payton said, I think he's bigger and stronger and just more athletic than he gets credit for. I
His
think he
pocket
throws on the
presence too.
yeah. I think he
Like
throws on
that
the move really well.
side, he doesn't like how many times you see like Russ would feel sometimes imaginary pressure and he
And
would
just bail.
do that big spin rollout. And it's like, dude, just stay in the pocket, trust your offensive line. This is not a bad offensive line.
No, it's not.
So it's the best we've had since the Manning era, in my opinion, since we, had Ryan Clady and those guys. But this is a solid O line. And you see Bo Nix and Sean called it that like half step, that just like that you don't have to roll out, you don't have to freak out, just kind of comfortable inside of that pocket and then able to his footwork is amazing. All the quarterbacks that have scouted him say his footwork's amazing, which is a nightmare for an edge rusher, because you can constantly just be moving around without moving too far. But yeah, I mean his footwork also is kind of underrated. He could be the best quarterback in this class.
Again, I think it'll depend on the fit and what Sean Payton can get out of him, but I totally agree. For what Sean Payton wants to do, I think he's the perfect fit. He's going to know exactly where the ball's supposed to go and get it there on time. Like I'm not a film junkie. Like, I know there's guys on Reddit that have like their own YouTube channels, like they're breaking down film. I played football for 2 years in middle school. I love it, but I don't really play it. I don't see it that way. But even I last year would see like just, this guy breaking open on a nicely schemed play and Russ is just standing there holding the ball. And then, like you said, bailing out. And it's like, just F and throw it. And like, you just see Sean Payton just turning beat red in the face over on the sideline. And so,
yep. And wasn't
I
there
feel
a
like
game where
that's going to be
Jerry Jeudy was wide open in the end zone and he threw it somewhere else? It was like late in the season when it really mattered and they needed a touchdown and it was like fourth down and they showed, that might have been year one of Russell Wilson actually. And then that was actually, I think, on Thursday Night Football. That was against the Colts. Man, how did the Colts win that game on Thursday night? We had that really comfortable lead, and then Russ threw a bad interception to Stephon Gilmore, I think it was. And then it went into overtime, and the Colts beat us. But there was a wide open receiver in the end zone, I believe.
I remember that. Yeah, I think you're right. It was Jerry Jeudy just streaking down. I think it was the left sideline, and it's just
wide open. Yeah. And it almost makes you wonder, like, when you're watching the game, like, I always said, I feel like Russell Wilson, every single week that he was a Bronco, he was looking for one play to kind of make up for everything. Instead of just taking the check down and taking what you can get, he was just like, I got to do something miraculous to kind of make up for, everything that I've put out on the field and kind of make my name. Oh, Russ is still special. He still got it. But I mean, we can be honest, like, and this is kind of a total pivot to Russell Wilson and how last year went and the departure of him. But there were some people in Broncos country that didn't feel like Russ was given fair treatment. They shouldn't have moved on from Russ. We won 5 games in a row. And I'm just like, look how many turnovers it took in that 5-win game stretch, right? Look how much had to go our way just for us to barely win. You bring up the Bills game. They had 12 men on the field and they got to re-kick the field goal. There's just so many things. Those catches from Cortland Sutton that had like a 1% completion percentage of probability. I mean, it's hardly fair to take those 5 games and say that, Russ proved in those 5 games that he should have been the long-term starter for the Broncos. What do you think about that and the fans that were wanting Russ to stick with, the Broncos this year?
Yeah, the biggest stat I saw quoted was like, "Oh, well, his touchdown to interception ratio was really good," and it's kind of like, well, who cares? I feel like he kind of started sensing the writing on the wall and almost started like did a 180 from like, you know, trying to hit the miracle shot every time to just like being paralyzed and not even hitting the kind of the medium well scheme stuff, but just like, playing almost too safe and too conservative to kind of protect his stats and, kind of start looking good for the next team. So,
I agree.
I feel like that kind of showed like he recognized he wasn't as good a fit as much as Sean Payton recognized it as well. And you can call it unfair. I mean, the guy's making like $85 million over the next 2 years, so I'm not going to feel too bad for him or call it too unfair. I think going back to his first year when Sean Payton was still in broadcasting, I think he started eyeing the job as like, oh man, I could get my hands on Russell Wilson. So I think he viewed him from an outside perspective of like, hey, this is Russell Wilson. He's been a top 10 quarterback in this league for a long time. He's won a Super Bowl. He's been to another one. Man, if I could get my hands on him, I think I could really, turn this franchise around. So I feel like it's kind of the opposite of the Vic Fangio and Drew Lock situation we talked about earlier, where, from day one, you could tell Vic did not want Drew Lock. But I feel like Sean Payton did. Like, he was excited, at least initially, to get to Denver and work with Russell Wilson. And then I think he just realized, like, this guy just is not what I need at quarterback. This is not how I view football, just totally from a philosophical standpoint, from a skill standpoint of like what Russ has versus what Sean looks for in a quarterback. It was just a total mismatch. And I think both, I honestly think Russ will be a better fit in Pittsburgh. And, I do wish him the best, but he wasn't the right fit for Denver. And, again, it was a unnaturally deep quarterback class this year. We're at 12. Like you said, we may have gotten one of the best quarterbacks in this draft, even though he was the sixth one taken. Like, what do you do? Just pass on it so you can give Russ another year, and then like, oh, well, now it was fair. Now we can move off of him. So,
right.
It might suck, but I'm not going to bemoan the decision. I think it was the right one.
Well, if let's say Bo Nix was in the 2021 draft, is that when Kenny Pickett was the only first round quarterback taken, I believe? Yeah, I think it was 2021. And then Malik what was it?
Willis.
Tennessee. Malik Willis was drafted, I think, in the second round. But that was
I think it was 2022 because Trevor Lawrence was 2021.
Oh, right. You're right. Yeah. So it was 2022. So if Bo Nix was in the 2022 draft, where do you think he would have been drafted? Maybe top 5.
Yeah, he definitely would have been QB1.
Absolutely. QB1 for sure. And then some of the quarterbacks that were taken ahead of him, it's kind of a long shot. I mean, I like a lot of these quarterbacks. And of course, right now, I think that most of them are going to work out. I'm not sure about Penix, to be totally honest. I just never had that. Sometimes it's just a feeling, right? I'm with you. I'm not like a film junkie. I do watch film though. And I have, I played high school football at a serious football program for, high school where Tim Tebow played. And there's just they take high school football very serious there, but I've never been, like Kurt Warner or, Phil Simms, like breaking down, even Steve Smith Jr., his wide receiver breakdowns are amazing. If you haven't checked it out, I recommend it. But he did one on Troy Franklin as well. And he made great points about Troy Franklin, where it's like, I want his speed to be an asset, not the only thing that he has. So he does have a little bit more developing, but staying on task. Like, yeah, I think if it would have been a different draft class, it's possible Bo Nix would have been, a top 5 draft pick. But like you said, we got lucky in a year where we didn't have the capital to move up in a draft that just happened to be the deepest quarterback draft class in my lifetime, and then people make comparisons to the 1983 draft where there was 6 quarterbacks taken, but Dan Marino was selected 30 overall. We're talking about 6 quarterbacks in the top 12. That's totally different than, Dan Marino almost slipping to the second round. But with Russ, I think both things are true. I think Sean did see Russ, and I agree with you. He was like, I can fix him. And then when he got to Denver, he made those comments about this was the worst coaching job maybe in the history of the NFL. A lot of people wanted him to apologize for those comments. I didn't. There's nothing to apologize for. Like, just because you're hurting someone's feelings, look, sometimes the truth hurts, and I don't think Sean just got a weird hair up his ass to, make that comment. I think that it slipped out. He mentioned that he had too many cappuccinos that morning, and, just all jacked up, and his buddy, who is a great reporter, kind of pulled that out of him. But whatever, he said what he said, and I don't think he needs to regret it. But I think both things are true. I think Sean believed he could fix Russ, and then I feel like as the season went on, he was like, nah, I can't fix a player that won't do what I'm asking him to do on the field. Yeah. It's simple as that.
I think across industries, not even football, but like one of the hallmarks of like successful companies, organizations, whatever, individuals even, is the ability to pivot quickly off a mistake. Like, okay, yes. We gave him that crappy contract. It sucks. It's not going to get better. Let's cut bait and move on and pivot, not just like double down or bear down just because, well, we made it. We gave him a bunch of money, so let's stick with it. Like, no, like successful companies make a bad decision all the time, but what makes them successful is their ability to recognize it and pivot off of it. And I think that's what the Broncos did here. So
I totally agree with that. Go. I think actually Colin Cowherd has an amazing segment on exactly what you're saying, and he really drives that point home. Like, successful companies, they don't just stick with their bad decision. Quick pivot, whether it's a head coach, whether it's a player, no matter what it is, like you said. So I totally agree with that. So overall, I said in the last interview that I felt like with Sean Payton as our head coach, and I'm going to stick with this until I'm proven wrong, but I'm going to stick with this. All right. I think our floor is 7 wins with Sean Payton as the head coach. And I draw a comparison to Sean Payton's last year without Drew Brees, where he had Eli Booker and Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill, just juggling these quarterbacks and they were still playing for the playoffs at the very end, week 17. I just feel like Sean's that great of a coach, where people saying the Broncos, I just looked at the win simulator. I made a whole video about it, but the Broncos were the second lowest win total. Only the Patriots had a lower win total with the projections, and the Broncos, I believe, were at 5.5, and the projector said they'll win 5.1. I just don't see Sean Payton losing that many football games, or actually, I don't see him winning that little football games. I see the Broncos as a 7-win football team as a minimum. What do you think it's possible that the Broncos end up with 5 wins this season? And if they do you think they would address the quarterback again next year? Obviously, it would depend on what Bo Nix looks like, but I just don't see a scenario where the Broncos are a 5-win football team.
Yeah, I agree totally. And I know our roster may not be super talented. Like, we may still have a talent deficiency in a lot of games.
What specifically, what side of the ball? Because offensively, I don't think they're getting enough credit for, the talent they have. Of course, I don't know if you heard, but we just lost our linebacker that we drafted last year out of Nebraska. I'm blanking on his name right now. He tore his ACL in practice today.
That was going to be the side of the ball. Like, I feel like we're kind of thin in that.
Yeah.
From like, we have some good edge rushers. Nick Benito. I think hopefully Ellis that we just drafted is going to be, can be solid. But again, as a rookie, 3rd-round pick, more of a rotational piece. We don't have that killer. We don't have a TJ Watt, a Von Miller, obviously. Obviously we have Patrick Surtain locking down one side of the field. Who's going to be our cornerback too? New safeties this year, with Justin Simmons gone. So, I think our defense needs another year of development. Another class of free agents. I think the next year and two, we'll have, obviously get some cap relief as Russ comes off the books, and another full complement of draft picks to kind of shore up the defense. But for looking at this year, sure, maybe we're a little thin on that side of the ball, but I feel like this team's going to have at least an offensive identity, like between Bo and Sean, and a really solid to good to maybe even really good offensive line, solid skill position players. I think Sean's going to know how to put together a game plan, and then Bo is going to go execute it, and that's going to win you a lot of games, at least keep you in a lot of games. So I think I would say I agree. I kind of like 7 as the floor. I could see us winning 10. I think we kind of feel like a 10-7, maybe just miss the playoffs, depending on how the rest of it shakes out. But that 9-8, 10-7 range, I think is very doable. And again, it's May, so everyone's overly optimistic, and I probably am too. But
it's all right. I feel the same way. I feel good. Yeah. I mean, I don't think. I mean, I'll be honest. There hasn't been many years where I haven't felt good. We've always kind of had some sort of reason to have hope, whether it was Sean Payton is going to fix Russ, and then Nathaniel Hackett and Russ's first year. But let me ask you this question, because this is something I'm truly torn about. I know we got about 8 minutes, but how do you feel about Vance Joseph? He was not an attractive hire, of course, as a former Broncos head coach that didn't pan out. But then I was at that game against the Dolphins, right? I was at that 70-point game. That was really rough. I mean, that was like, I always say, during this kind of stretch post Peyton Manning, I have found a new rock bottom every year when I think, there's no way it could get worse.
As bad as it gets.
Worse. And now this year we have a chance to, knock on wood, we have a chance to lose to Russell Wilson as a Steeler, and then Nathaniel Hackett, and then maybe even the Seahawks. Like, I'm knocking on wood. I don't think it's going to happen. I actually think we're going to end up 3-1 in that stretch. But what do you think about Vance Joseph? Because after that 70-point game, and then all of a sudden the Broncos kind of got an identity going of, they get the most takeaways. They became a little stingy. McMillan was playing really good at that time. And it kind of felt like Vance Joseph was safe. Obviously, they're sticking with Vance Joseph this year. But overall, do you feel like if Vance Joseph doesn't pan out this year, Denver is going to fire him? And what are your overall thoughts of Vance Joseph being our defensive coordinator going into year 2?
Yeah, I did not love the hire either. Obviously it would have been preferable to bring Ajiro back. But yeah, giving up 70 points, that was I expect him to be fired. I was probably like rage tweet, like, fire him, don't let him get on the plane. Yeah, they got stingy, especially over that 5-game stretch. Was it sustainable? And then it seems like they kind of, maybe came back to earth a little bit down the stretch. Certainly willing to roll into one more year with him, but I think his seat should be warm to hot. Like you said, you look at the offensive side of the ball, it's pretty good. Like, yeah, maybe add a piece here and there. Could still use a reliable, consistent game, field stretching tight end. But overall, I feel like our receiving core is solid. It's not, we don't have a Jamar Chase over on that side of the ball, I don't think, unless Troy Franklin really surprises people. But it's
Right.
It's going to be solid to good. Our offensive line's really good, and I think we're going to run the absolute fuck out of the ball this year with our running backs. So that side of the ball should be solid. So if Vance can just kind of be, if we can be good on offense and average on defense, we can at least hold our own in some of these matchups.
I don't love Will Lutz. I don't love that I know Will Lutz kind of finished the season, but I just felt like, is he like, I don't know. I feel like, okay, we're just kind of
on audio.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. Oh, you're back. Okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that might have been on my end. I don't know. That was weird.
Yeah, I don't feel great about Will Lutz either. Like, I think he's serviceable. He's not bad enough where he needs to get canned, but he also wasn't, amazing last year. I think he finished though the end of the season. He was like 7 for 8 in the fourth quarter stretch, and that kind of like secured his job moving forward. But he's another player that I could see if he goes out and misses 2 of his first 5 field goals at 40 yards, or maybe because Sean just kept bringing in his guys from New Orleans. And as much as I love and trust Sean, there was a little bit of me that was like, okay, Adam Trotman's not the answer at tight end.
There's other players.
There's other players out there, and I kind of put Will Lutz in that category. Did you want Denver to draft a kicker late in the round? I was hoping that they would draft in maybe the 6th round, like a Will Richards or out of Alabama, or just somebody, for the future. I don't look at Will Lutz as our future at kicker.
That would have been cool. So I'm obviously not an expert on college kickers or even know who is good, but I know that kid from Alabama. So my wife is a huge Alabama football fan. So we've watched tons of games, and they've had kicking woes for years. But then that kid really solved them. So that would have been cool. But again, in a draft where like we have kind of still limited picks and other needs, I kind of like that center that we drafted in the 7th round. He's got a cool mustache, if nothing else. I don't know. I would totally support and hope they kind of bring in some competition, maybe some undrafted free agent guys in camp, some extra legs, and see who sticks. I'm sure I haven't watched much spring football in the UFL, but who was the guy the Cowboys took out of there last year? They went and found a kicker there that was just I'm
blanking on his name, but he was a mayor.
Me too. Something like that. But, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to them looking at other options to address kicking beyond Will Lutz. And, why wouldn't you? I guess this time of year, bring in some guys. There's no roster count now for OTAs, and
that's my favorite. I love when they bring in competition.
Yeah, it really kind of forces guys to elevate their game. So
exactly,
I would be open to having the kicking game looked at.
Well,
speaking of kicking, I'm super jazzed about the new kickoff format this year.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be cool. Like, especially with guys like Franklin and Mims, like they're like built for this kind of stuff. To get actual returns set up for them, I think those guys are gonna feast.
Do you think there's gonna be a lot of like kickoff returns for touchdowns?
I do.
Too many? Like enough where they'll change the rule next year?
I don't know. I don't watch enough UFL football to kind of see how it works, but I think it'll. From what I've heard, it seems to kind of strike that balance of like it is exciting, like there's actually potential. I mean, the kickoff has kind of become a
touchback.
I'm gonna go refill my nachos and use the restroom because nothing exciting is gonna happen here. Fair catch, touchback. So I know it'll definitely increase the number of returns, and hopefully with a corresponding but not too much uptick in like returns for touchdowns as well. I think it'll at least make it exciting, which is what the NFL knows its brand. It knows it's a television product, so that's what it'll go for.
Yeah, I'm excited. I feel like until I actually see it in the preseason, I don't even know what to expect. Like it's gonna be weird, but that's okay. I'm with you as long as it's fun and exciting and it's not, steering the game in a weird direction. Then I'm okay with it. I was gonna ask you one last thing, but before I do, was there anything that I didn't ask you that you wanted to answer?
Well, you didn't ask me who I hate more, the Chiefs or the Raiders.
Yeah, let's do that.
Tough. I'd have to lean Chiefs right now just because they're so freaking successknows I agree. But it's a close call.
It is tough. My mom went to Vegas and she knows I love football, so she brought back a like Las Vegas football keychain, and I was like, I love you. This is like, it's so sweet that you thought of me, but this is the worst gift you've ever given me. And then I'm with you on the Chiefs. Like their recent success has definitely elevated the rivalry with the Chiefs. Probably to me, number one. I remember Travis Kelce like dropping F-bombs to our fans after one game. Like, just, I don't know. The Chiefs piss me off so much. It's like
They have an
they're
air of
really,
unlikability about them that the Raiders
yeah.
don't
I
right
mean,
now. Now the Raiders definitely
Jackson,
have. They always have it
Mahomes.
because they're the Raiders, but like the Chiefs are like they're actively easy to just dislike. Like I feel like even as a neutral football fan, eventually like you gotta be like,
Yeah.
I don't like these guys.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. It's really difficult. And it's funny because it's like the Chargers are there, but we've had the Chargers number always.
Yeah,
I can't think of a time where I was like, "Oh no, we're playing the Chargers." I mean, I know it's going to be a good game. It's an AFC West division, but the Raiders actually, man, they got our number the last couple of years. And I mean, Josh Jacobs going to Green Bay might be a blessing because that
yeah. I'm
dude
not gonna be
runs
sad
the
about not
screws.
seeing that guy twice a year.
Yeah, not at all. Um, and let me close with this. Aside from the Super Bowl, I'm gonna say Super Bowl 50, because that was the first Super Bowl that I remember. But taking like those games away, what's your favorite Broncos moment that maybe would be surprising for somebody to know? Mine's Champ Bailey's 99-yard interception return against the Patriots that he fumbled and it turned into a touchback. I don't care about it. It's still like my emotions have never, I had hair rising. That moment, I stayed up all night because of that play.
Yeah.
What play or what moment do you think of when you think of your favorite moment as a Bronco fan?
So one of them that kind of sticks in my mind is it's more to do also with just kind of the stage of life that I was in then too. So it was Peyton Manning's first year in 2012, and he'd gotten off to a bit of a rough start. I don't remember exactly what his record was, but it was like one
One
and
and
two, one
three.
and three,
Yeah.
and we were playing the Chargers, and we were down 24-0 at halftime, and as with my then girlfriend, now wife, and we were watching the game at Applebee's. Like this was didn't have money for DirecTV, and weren't streaming anywhere else, but you could go there and like you know being married now and in a career and two kids, like you can't just go pull up at a bar and like watch a game for 3.5 hours
Yeah.
now, and like you could then, and just that moment of just being there with her, like she's a big football fan too, and being down 24-0 at half and like, well, might as well cash out and let's just go because this is stupid. But for whatever reason, we just decided to stay, and then Peyton hit that. I think it was like a seam route to Demaryius Thomas to kind of split two defenders, and all of a sudden it's 24-7, and then it's 24-14, and we're making defensive plays now, and you kind of see it start clicking, like the whole Peyton Manning experiment.
Yeah.
The comeback, the fact that it was down 24-0, the fact that it was against the Chargers. I think it was a Monday night game too, either a Sunday night or Monday night game.
I think it was a Thursday.
Maybe it was a Thursday night game. I know it was a nighttime game, and being there with this girl I was pretty sure I was going to marry, and just getting to experience that with her was just special all the way around. So that was just kind of a fun memory that I still have, was the Chargers 24-0 game at halftime where we came back and won.
Well, I would agree with that 100%. And I don't know if you guys saw, but the intro video, I was thinking there's probably going to be a lot of Bronco fans that are like, why did you put that touchdown in the intro video? Because we're down 24-0.
Yeah, that's
And
the
I'm
one.
like, that is the play. So when I made that intro video, it was just a group of my favorite moments. The Champ Bailey interception was there. That was there, of course. Tim Tebow to Demaryius Thomas, Ronnie Hillman, just a lot of great moments, and hopefully we got a ton of great moments ahead. I'd love to have you back on during the season if you're interested.
Yeah.
And back on.
I've really enjoyed my time here tonight. This was really fun, and I think this is an awesome interview series that you're doing. Two moments that you could add that would be really cool: the Demaryius Thomas, Tim Tebow touchdown and overtime walk-off against the Steelers.
Yeah.
And the Von Miller interception of Tom Brady in the AFC Championship game in 2015.
The Von Miller. Wait, say the Tim Tebow play is in the intro.
Is it okay? I missed that one. I must have been distracted.
But what was the second one that you said?
The Von Miller interception of Tom Brady in the AFC.
Oh,
I think it was the 2015 AFC Championship game. There's several from that game you could put in. Von Miller
the
feasted.
2-point conversion interception.
Yeah,
A lot,
yeah, that's a great one.
And then he fumbled it, and then he fumbled it at the end of the play. So they were going for 2 to tie the game, and then we intercepted it, and then he was running it back instead of just sliding and ending the game. He ran it back, and then when he got tackled, he fumbled it. Luckily, nothing happened. But yeah, that was just such an amazing moment because that was like you're going to the Super Bowl, and I think Broncos beat the Patriots in 2013 and 2015 to make it to the Super Bowl. So we've always had, as much as people say Tom Brady's the GOAT, it's like, well, Peyton Manning really had his number in Denver.
Yeah. Denver's always kind of had their number a little bit outside the Tim Tebow playoff game against them where they dropped 40 on us.
Yeah. Oh man, that was rough, but it was just kind of cool. It was just like it was kind of like I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, man, totally appreciate you coming on, and looking forward to our next time doing this.
Yeah, I'd love to come back on the season if you're willing to have me. So yeah, just message me anytime you want to have me back. I'd be thrilled.
For sure. If you guys were watching this and you enjoyed this, please like the video. It helps the algorithm out. And, comment if you want to, and subscribe if you want to. If you're enjoying this kind of content, then you can make this your home for Denver Broncos football. But yeah, man, great time, and looking forward to next time.
All right. Go Broncos, and God bless Bo Nix.
God bless Bo Nix.